Alright, Shalom. First and foremost, I have to give all praises, honor, and glory unto the Heavenly Father and His only begotten Son, Yahweh, Ba'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'Hasheruka HaKadash. Double honors and respect to our apostles and elders of Great Millstone who will and taught us this truth. I also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect in the 1/3. This is your brother Salah. Alright, in today's video, man, and we are going to be talking about basically, the downfall of America. All right, and it's not because of China, right? No, 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 America will be doing it to themselves, right? Right. So we are gonna open up with Psalm chapter 60 verse 8, and and your brothers out there, we should all know the scripture by heart, right? Or by now, one of the easy milk scriptures. Psalms chapter 60, verse 8. Moab is my washpot. Over Edom I will cast out my shoe. Philistia triumphed out because of me, right? And, and basically, right, what you see here with Dr. Victor Gao, he's basically saying, just to give a short summary, Dr. Gao, he's gonna go into detail, this Moabite right here, but he's basically saying, right, the downfall of America is not necessarily because of China, but it's because of America's paranoia of what they think China would do, but America is making all the bad decisions, and it's causing its own downfall. And really, what that is it's Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, putting putting the thoughts, in these men, to make these bad decisions, and ultimately to bring the destruction of Babylon the Great, right? And the apostles and elders, have been all saying, this, have all been saying, the same, the same, the same rhetoric, or Salakia, no, not rhetoric, but have been saying the same thing pretty much, right? That the downfall of America, or Babylon the Great, right, is going to be, from these own Edomites, right? Right, is because there's no more wisdom in Teman, right? All right, so let's get a couple of precepts, before we play the video, and of course we're gonna get the copyright disclaimer before we play the video. And in fact, I have a couple of videos I like to bring out. We're gonna play only part of this video because the rest of it is kind of bull crap. Because as you see, man, Esau, like, he'll try to deflect the argument, as Esau always does. All right, this video also has a few important things too, as well as this, and yeah, that should be pretty much it. So I'll like to get, is there no more wisdom in Teman? All right. We're going to get the book of Jeremiah, chapter 49, verse 7, and it says here, concerning Edom, thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Bashim Yahshai Sabaoth, meaning his armies, is wisdom no more in Teman? Is counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? And yeah, man, Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, he's putting the thoughts, in these, in these world leaders, right? Trump, aka Caesar Nero, and the rest of his his cabinet, for them to make these stupid decisions with these tariffs, which is ultimately, destroying America from within, right? Because ultimately they want to maintain that control of the world reserve currency. They want that hegemony. They want people to use their money. They don't want others. They fear other people using their money because in their mind they see that as rebellion. I mean, they think they like as Dr. Gao say, they're looking at it from a Cold War perspective. They think that China's going to rise up and attack them. Well, that's not necessarily how these heathens move. They don't exactly operate the same way as this devil does. Now it might in a few certain cases or certain circumstances, but overall, man, that's not how Moab operates, man. As we go back to the Psalm chapter 60 verse 8, it says Moab is my washpot. So we're gonna break this down in the blue letter, and brothers have broken this down the blue letter before, but we're doing this, to stress a talking point in the video. So we're gonna paste it right here. So we're gonna get the Strongs, and we're gonna get the washpot.
Strong's H 5518 seer.
Wait, did I get the correct one? Oh, Slovakia, that was the wrong one. Oh, 5818. Oh no, that's it.
Strong's H 5518 seer.
Alright, so your pot household utensil, a pot of temple, thorn, hook, briar, thorns, hooks, right? Alright, pot household utensil, right? Alright, and alright, so alright, but this context is referred to as a washpot, a typical utensil. You know what you use. Slocky, there's a different definition. Let's look at this.
Strong's H 7366 rachets.
Rahat's washing. And it says the same thing in Psalms chapter 108 verse 9, and basically, right, Moab's job is, he's the servant. Well, he's the servant role, right? Their people are more focused on, like service jobs, as the brothers say, they're into their hair salons, their food stores, massages and whatnot, mostly service jobs. You might see some of them in the IT tech department, math, computer science, some of them in engineering. And basically, subject matter, or jobs like that. They're more focused on, how can I say this, like 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 refinement task, right? Hence why, hence why you see Moab, advance the way they do, because they're so focused on what they're doing, until they achieve, said goal, right? And really it's Yahweh Bashim Yashar that put the spirit on Moab, to advance the way they did. They suffered that, that what's it called, that, their century worth of humiliation. When Esau, with the British and the French, they went through two opium wars, man. And basically, right, what happened was, they took a bunch of riches and resources, and they had like an imbalanced trade, right? I believe, it was the British, that went to the Summer Palace, burnt it down, and took like artifacts in there, and they still have it in their, their museums to this day, which goes to show you, man, that these fucking devils, rape, rob, and steal, right? And funny thing I like to mention, man, like if Moab right now, like if President Xi Jinping or whatever ambassador were to go to the British Museum and ask for their artifacts back, they're not gonna fucking give it back too, man. Goes to show you, man, that, man, how fucking greedy these damn devils are, man. Which is exactly why people like these devils, they don't want to give, they don't want to, let go of their world reserve currency, is because is because they're wicked, man. They're unwise, right? They're wise to do evil, but unto good they don't know how to do, right. And that scripture was mainly meant for Israel, but it could also apply to these damn devils too, because they are their father, the devil, man. They are the children of Satan, right. while Israel is supposedly supposed to be the children of light. All right, so without me, rambling on, too much, I'm gonna play the video, and then I'm gonna get a couple more, some precepts out. So before we do that, we're gonna jump to what's this? Yeah, the copyright disclaimer. Disclaimer: copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. All right, so with that out of the way, we're gonna play this first video by Dr. Victor Gao, and his quote unquote shocking warning, to Babylon.
If you want to destroy China, China will destroy you. You want to treat China as an enemy, then you will get an enemy in China. We will cut off all these supplies to you, and we will never trade in any meaningful way rare earth with the Americans. And we want to see whatever progress you can make in your national defense.
Victor Gao has just issued a shocking warning that has Washington on edge. America will be crushed by China, and not in the way anyone expected. This is a calculated prediction from one of China's most influential voices. The era of unquestioned American dominance is collapsing, and China isn't asking for permission to rise.
War is not an option between China and the United States, and war should not be an option at all for China and the United States.
Victor Gao isn't sounding the drums of war, he's doing the opposite. And that's exactly what makes Washington so nervous. Because here's a man, deeply connected to China's elite, calmly saying, there will be no war. Not now, not ever. Why? Because war is pointless. Gao doesn't say this as an opinion. He says it like a fact. The kind of fact that makes defense contractors uncomfortable and generals shuffle in their seats.
Any war between China and the United States may soon escalate from conventional war to nuclear war. And in a nuclear confrontation, there will be no winner. Both China and the United States will be wiped out. What is the goal of the United States?
I just want to pause for a second. Yes, this will eventually lead to nuclear war, right? And I'm gonna call it right now. Although China won't be the aggressor, right? Esau, he's gonna set up some sort of false flag event to not only is he gonna slander and blame the Israelites for what's going on in America, but across the world he's also gonna blame China, right? He's gonna make some sort. He's gonna like Caesar Nero, right? He's gonna make some sort of excuse or some sort of narrative to point the finger at China to make China look like they've caused economic collapse when really the whole world's gonna know that it's fucking Babylon the Great that caused the collapse because they have the receipts of Babylon making all these stupid decisions, right? And once. And basically, once Babylon basically loses that trade trust, which I actually showed another video of with the other nations, right? The other nations, they that's when they're gonna turn on Babylon, right. They're gonna turn on, they're gonna lose trust in Babylon, and then America's gonna make another stupid decision, right. Right, set up a false flag event, where it makes America the aggressor on behalf of the small hats, the least of the flock, drawing them out, the Amalekites, right, which is gonna kick off the with the third bull in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, and then that's gonna drag China there as well, and then ultimately that will lead to the nukes because the nukes will fire once mass mass chipping thing starts because at that time, right, then once all hell breaks loose in Babylon and the rest of the world, right, then that's going to roll out the MOTV to try to make some sort of sense of order, but during the midst of that, right, China's gonna get blamed. China's probably gonna get attacked, right? And eventually that's gonna lead to nuclear war, or because as Gao said, China they're not gonna take that, right? That's gonna be the time of the Lord casting out Esau. You, casting out Esau's that shoe because at that point Esau's already served his purpose. He started to chip everyone, and that's when the Lord's gonna swoop. And once these nukes fire, that's when the Lord's gonna swoop down. Beam up the elect. Lord willing, we're part of the elect. Baba Gashah, Yahweh Shem Shai, and and that's when Babylon the Great is gonna get fucking destroyed, man. Along with parts of the land of Moab, over there in China, and as well as the rest of as well as certain parts of the world. But I'm gonna continue the video.
If it wants to engage in a war with China, do they really believe or indulge in the fantasy that they can wipe out China with 1.4 billion people, whereas the United States will remain more or less unscathed? No, that's not going to be the scenario.
Let's be real. Both China and the US are nuclear powers, and not just casually so. Between them, they hold more than 11,000 nuclear warheads. One wrong move, and the world isn't just at war, it's gone. That's why Gao calls this entire China versus America war drama pure hysteria. A fantasy, but one that sells weapons, boosts military budgets, and feeds fear. Look at the numbers. In 2024, the US defense budget hit $886 billion. And still, every few weeks, a new think tank screams about China being the next threat. But ask yourself, who's benefiting from this fear? Not the public, not the economy, just the war industry.
So I want to shake up those decision makers in Washington and in the Pentagon and the deep state. Don't ever indulge in the fantasy of launching.
And when they say deep state, he knows the wicked elites, the wicked Amalekites, the bankers, going to the Rothschilds, Rockefellers, Oppenheimers, DuPonts, Gettys, man. Man, the whole world knows their wickedness. The whole world knows their illicit, sex parties, man. And what goes on in Petal Island, Esau's exposed, man. Let's get the scripture. This is the book of Obadiah, chapter 1, starting at verse 6. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. And that's right, man. And there's no understanding in Esau Edom, man. He's at his wits end, right? Why? Because we are at the end of his kingdom, right? Esau's in fucking panic mode, so he's making all these irrational decisions, which is ultimately going to lead to his fucking downfall, man. Right. And the Lord put the spirit, like I said before, the Lord put the spirit on Moab, that washpot, for producing cheap Chinese goods, to producing high quality, high tech stuff, man, and top of the line, weaponry and artillery, as well as increasing, their nuclear, capabilities and defenses, man. And the Lord's gonna use Moab and the rest of these nations, right, to attack and destroy Esau, Edom, man, and then once the nukes start flying, man, and that's when Yahweh Shai, he's gonna swoop down, save his elect from Babylon and the rest of the and where the elect are scattered, right, and then they're gonna come down the valley of Jehoshaphat, Yahweh Shaphat, Yahweh's judgment, in the so-called Middle East, which really is which really in that area. Yeah, where the third war is gonna take place. They're gonna destroy the remaining armies, and Israel's gonna be set out top. With guided by Yahweh Shem Shai, with King David on the throne, and the rest of the 144,000 man. And Israel's gonna rule forever in righteousness. And they're never gonna go off because they have that new spiritual bodies. And Esau, man, and the rest of these heathens, man, they're gonna be suffering in captivity for the next 1,000 years, and until they get released back to the homelands, and Esau gets destroyed, as we're gonna keep reading down. Let's get the full chapter of Obadiah. right, all right. I'll read the rest of Obadiah once we finish the video. So,
launching a war against China.
Now here's where it gets even more interesting. Gao says the US isn't just miscalculating, it's trapping itself. Everyone keeps throwing around this idea of the Thucydides trap, the idea that when a rising power threatens a ruling one, war is inevitable. The US sees itself as Athens, and China as Sparta. That story ends in bloodshed.
China wants to promote peace, stability, and development, not only for itself.
But Victor Gao flips the script. He says China isn't trying to replace anyone. It's not trying to lead the world through force, it's trying to trade with it. China's rise has been economic, technological, diplomatic. It's not invading countries. It's not installing puppet governments. It's building ports, highways, fiber cables. And still, Washington keeps viewing China through a Cold War lens, like it's 1950 all over again.
It is very bad.
And see, that's the thing with Moab. Although it might seem nice that Moab wants to trade, and help build up other countries with its infrastructure, with its high-speed rails, free healthcare, and providing housing to the homeless or whatever, and fiber optics or whatever. But ultimately, man, the Lord's gonna take it down because they're still participating in the hope of Babylon, right? And the scriptures speak on this in Second Ezra, right? This is the book of Second Ezra, chapter 15, verse 46, right? And it says here, and thou Asia that art partaker of the hope of Babylon and art the glory of her person, will be unto thee, thou wretch, because thou hast made thyself like unto her, and hast decked thy daughters in whoredom. They that they might please and glory in thy lovers, right? Let's build each other's infrastructure. Everyone can be rich. It's the mentality of if you win, if I do this for you, you could have this, and I get money, and you get infrastructure. Therefore, you win, I win, we all win. Well, no, that's them that's them wanting to please their lovers, and them committing whoredom, because they're still participating in that wicked ass system, right? It's not underneath the authority of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? Which have always deemed to commit whoredom with thee. That thou hast followed her, that is hated in all her works and inventions. Therefore, saith Yahweh, I will send plagues upon thee, widowhood, poverty, famine, sword, and pestilence, to waste thy houses with destruction and death. And that's exactly what's happening right now, and that's only going to increase. Once this third woe is going to happen, right? Because the Lord, he put that spirit on Esau, Edom, to attack Moab, because he sees Moab as a threat, to his kingdom. Even though Moab wants to help, develop, hence why they them decide to commit whoredom, and pleasing their lovers, right? By what, building that infrastructure and trade, Babylon, man, they want to be that top G, they want to be that top dog, man, and they want to take anyone that they see as a threat, even though they quote unquote want to help them out. But you know what? Well, this is ultimately playing by the Lord, for them to fucking destroy each other, man. Because at the end of the day, Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, man, Yahushai, he's gonna take all crowns, man. It's only gonna be Israel that's gonna be on top.
It's an unprecedented trade war on such a large global scale, possibly not for almost 100 years.
But here's the catch. China isn't playing that game. It never was. And that's what makes the US so anxious. You can't win a war if the other side refuses to fight. Now let's talk about something Victor Gao calls hypermilitarism. This is where things start getting really uncomfortable, especially for America.
Because I think the United States, the strongest military power in the world, the largest economy if we use official exchange rate as the benchmark, country with so many military bases in more than 100 countries in the world, becomes such a source of unreliability.
The US has more than 750 military bases scattered around the world. China? Just one small base in Djibouti. And that's mostly for anti-piracy and logistics. Yet somehow, China is the one accused of global aggression? Let's be honest, who's surrounding who? American warships patrol the South China Sea. U.S. bombers fly near Taiwan. American troops are stationed all over Asia, just a few hours from Beijing. If this were reversed, if Chinese destroyers were sailing near California, or China had military bases in Mexico and Canada, would that be called peacekeeping?
China will never seek hegemony, meaning China will deal with all countries. Roughly, we have about 200 countries in the world of today as equal. And we want to promote what we call win-win situation for all the countries in the world.
And here's the tragic.
Again, them wanting to please thy lovers, and always wanting them wanting to commit whoredom with, with Babylon, not just Babylon, but with the rest of the world. They think it's gonna be all this all hold hands and we're gonna win, but that's not how the Lord sets it up, man. The Lord sets. So he divides the nations, right? He sets up one that's in rulership, and eventually, man, that's gonna be Yahweh Bashim Al Shai, man, and the elect of Israel. Ultimately, ultimately it's gonna be all of Israel, but it's basically gonna begin with the elect, with the 144,000, man.
Irony. While the U.S. is obsessed with preparing for a war that won't happen, it's bleeding out in the areas that actually matter: trade, tech, diplomacy. China is building relationships across the global south. It's creating new infrastructure deals. It's setting up its own international institutions.
They focus on semiconductor chips. They want to weaponize chips. They want to deny China's access to chips, especially on the more advanced side.
And the U.S.? It's doubling down on sanctions, tariffs, and military alliances. It's stuck in the 20th century, trying to contain a country that has no interest in being contained.
Second point is that this global reciprocal tariff war is the wrong war for the United States to fight.
Gao doesn't say these things with anger. He says them like someone who's watching a train crash in slow motion. And the worst part? The U.S. could avoid all of this if it stopped trying to dominate and started learning to cooperate. But right now, it's too busy flexing muscles it doesn't need to use.
And again, the Lord put the Spirit on them to do so. And let me get the scripture out before it slips my mind. Book of Proverbs, chapter 21, starting at verse 1. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, as the rivers of water. He turneth it wheresoever he will. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord Yahweh Bashim Yahshai pondereth the hearts, meaning their minds. To do justice and judgment is more acceptable to the Lord than sacrifice. Right, and ultimately, right, he ultimately wants his will done on earth, right. That's why he said he's putting the thoughts in the minds of these world leaders, to ultimately fulfill prophecy, right? To fulfill what he needs to get done. All right. So let's go back here.
It's not constructive. It's not going to help to declare the goal of moving manufacturing jobs back to the United States.
Let's get one thing straight. Victor Gao doesn't talk like a warmonger. He doesn't beat war drums. But when he talks about the US-China rivalry, he doesn't hold back either. In fact, when he says things like, "The weaponization of trade will be America's economic suicide," you realize this isn't just another expert rambling on cable news. Gao is saying that Washington is cutting off its own oxygen supply and calling it a strategy.
I simply do not understand what's the real motivation. Now, I think the United States is holding a gun at every country's head. You need to listen to my dictate. You need to do whatever I tell you to do.
It starts with tariffs. The US thought it could slow China's rise with economic restrictions. Tariffs, tech bans, chip controls, investment blocks, the whole playbook. But what's actually happening? China's adapting faster than anyone predicted. Huawei, once battered by US sanctions, came back swinging with a new 7-nanometer chip made without American tech. China's pouring billions into semiconductor independence, quantum computing, AI, renewable energy. The more pressure the US applies, the more China builds its own supply chain. It's not retreating, it's leveling up.
For the 140 countries in the world which consider China as the largest trading partner of theirs,
And here's the kicker. While China speeds up, American consumers are paying the price. Since the trade war began, US businesses and households have been slammed with rising costs. According to the Peterson Institute, Trump's tariffs, and Biden's continuation of them, cost Americans over $57 billion annually. That's not China footing the bill. That's you. Higher prices at Walmart, delays in manufacturing, shortages in electronics, machinery, auto parts, all because someone in DC thought taxes on Chinese steel would teach Beijing a lesson. Spoiler, it didn't.
war in Chinese philosophy is always the last resort.
That brings us
And that lesson is, and what Babylon's trying to teach is, I'm the one in power. I'm the one that can be in charge of the money. You have to do whatever the fuck I tell you to do, man. Man, if we're gonna make an unfair trade, you better fucking do it or else, man. And that's basically the mentality of these Edomites, right? All right, let's get a scripture to substantiate that. This is the book of Micah, chapter 2, verse 2, and it says here, "And they come in fields and take them by violence, and houses and take them away. So they oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage." Right? You know, just like I said with that century humiliation that happened in China, right? You know, with the Edomite, British, raided the summer palace, burned it down, and took the relics, right, back to their museums, right? You know, and of course they're gonna fucking refuse to give it back, even though China can quote unquote pay, why the fuck would you have to pay for something that already belongs to you just to get it back, man? That's absolutely fucking madness, man. But it just goes to show you the fucking wickedness of these damn devils, man. And that's why Esau's not gonna get mercy in the kingdom, man. Well, it's one of the many reasons why he's not gonna get mercy, man, because he shewed no mercy, right? Let's get that. This is the book of James, chapter 2, verse 13. "For he shall have judgment without mercy that hath shown no mercy, but mercy rejoiceth against judgment." Right? So and basically, right, Esau, Edom, right? He's basically showing no mercy. To these other nations, right? They want to be top dog, but guess what, man? They're gonna be in the very fucking bottom where they belong, man. And they're gonna continuously suffer that 1,000 years until that 1,000 periods up, and they get burned up in the pit, pertaining to the book of Obadiah, which we're gonna read later.
us to one of the most misunderstood pieces of China's global posture, its peace doctrine. Gao says China's rise is rooted in development, not domination. But the West keeps seeing it through a Cold War lens, as if every port built under the Belt and Road is a secret military base, as if every Chinese investment is a Trojan horse. Gao laughs at that idea. China doesn't do regime change. It doesn't fund coups. It doesn't bomb countries for democracy. Its model is simple: trade, invest, build. And while the US has over 750 military bases across the world, China has one in Djibouti.
You sell your commodities to the rest of the world. Don't sell it to any other country. Sell only to China. No, we engage in free trade, and we want to be the standard bearer of free trade. We want to do the right thing, and we want to help all the countries in the world to gain economic development.
Yet this restraint is constantly misread as strategic passivity, as if not fighting means not powerful. Western politicians mistake diplomacy for weakness. Gao flips that narrative. He says China's real strength is in not wanting to control, in wanting to engage without conquering. We don't want to rule the world, he says. We just want to trade with it. But apparently, in Washington, that's more threatening than sending troops.
Eloquent indication of whether China uses war as a top priority of its diplomacy, or whether the United States uses war to solve whatever problems it defines for itself.
And that brings us to the psychological battlefield, the one Gao says America is actually losing. Because this whole idea that China is the enemy isn't rooted in facts, it's rooted in fear. Fear pumped daily by media outlets, think tanks, and politicians who thrive on tension. Every time something breaks in the US, whether it's a supply chain glitch or a political meltdown, it's easier to blame China than fix the problem. China becomes the scapegoat for inflation, tech layoffs, political dysfunction, even TikTok addiction.
China has always been very strong and very firm in defending its legitimate rights, including sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Gao calls it what it is: paranoia, weaponized narratives, an evil China myth that keeps defense budgets.
Weaponized narratives, and that's basically Esau's whole MO, which is basically what Esau uses, to attack other nations, right, and even attack their own people, man. This devil is about to lose, man, because he has wits end. And so once this video finishes, I'm gonna grab a couple more precepts.
Bad and media ratings high. But here's the twist. While the West keeps panicking, the rest of the world is moving. Countries in Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America, they're not picking sides. They're partnering with whoever offers infrastructure, technology, and investment. And 9 times out of 10, that's Beijing.
And in the short and medium term, the US people will suffer more bad consequences because they will be deprived of all the products produced in China, which they can readily pick up in their stores.
So when Gao says America will be crushed, he doesn't mean tanks rolling through Washington. He means a slow erosion, not by war, but by irrelevance, by failing to innovate fast enough, by turning away from global cooperation, by collapsing under the weight of its own fear and pride. Gao says, China won't crush America by force. America will crush itself trying to stop China. And you know what? That line hits harder than any missile ever could. This isn't a call for surrender. It's a wake-up call. Gao's entire message isn't China wins, America loses. It's that the future belongs to those who build, not those who bully. The real
Yeah, man, and as you heathens, that's gonna build up the kingdom of Israel, man. So let's get a few precepts out. The accuser of this is the book of Revelation, chapter 12, starting at verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world, and was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. Right, and that dragon, that devil, and that serpent, right? Is talking about none other than Esau, Edom, right? He was originally the serpent in that garden, right? He's that wicked seed line, and then they died and came and it was continued on through Cain, and then after the flood, it was continued on through Esau, man. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, Now comes salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God Yahweh, and the power of his Hamashiach. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuses them before our God, day and night. And they overcome him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony. And they loved not their lives unto death. And yet, man, ultimately through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Shine, man, the elect, Lord willing, we be part of that number, man. We gonna make it through all these things, man, and that includes the MOTV, the Hour of Temptation, which is ultimately what this whole what this whole thing is building up to, man, is that ultimate test, and once Esau and these other nations, serve their purpose, man, they gonna get, Babylon's gonna get nuked, and the rest of these nations, they're gonna go into captivity, man. We can't wait, man. All right, so now I'm gonna jump back to the book of it was the book of Obadiah, right? Obadiah, starting at verse 1. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai concerning Edom. We have heard a rumor from the Lord, or an ambassador is said among the heathen, Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen, thou art greatly despised. The pride of thine heart have deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, Who shall bring me down to the ground, right? And ultimately, right, their pride and arrogance, as Dr. Gal said, is going to be their downfall, right? Because they think they're being threatened, right? Instead of cooperating, right, and actually enjoying their blessing, right, and enjoying the time that that Esau and the rest of these Gentiles have in rulership, right? Esau, he would rather scramble, bicker and fight over, or just to gain that sense of that feeling of superiority, right? It's like a fucking drug to them, man. That's why a lot of these low level Edomites, just take a bunch of drugs to have that feeling to feel good, man. They really are the fucking bases of men, right? These people, they are not fit to rule. They are they are a foolish nation, man. And let's get that. Okay. This is the book of Job, chapter 30, verse 8. They were the children of fools. Yeah, they were base men. They were viler than the earth. And and yeah, man. Ultimately, Yahweh Shem Shai, man. He's gonna, and he's gonna do away with them after that 1,000 year, man. Because they ain't gonna serve any more purpose after that, man. Because then after they get burned up, their suffering of them just existing until the wicked is gonna end, right? It's the Lord showing them mercy. All right, continue on verse 4. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, and though thou set thy nest among the stars, then shall I bring thee down, saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Shai. If thieves came to thee, if robbers by night, how art thou cut off? Would they have not stolen till they had enough? And yeah, man, these devils, these want to keep getting more and more and more and more and more and more, and it's never fucking enough to them, man. If the grave gatherers came to thee, would they not leave? From the grave said, no, they would take everything. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that have eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. Shall I not in that day, saith the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahshua, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and the understanding out of the mount of Esau? And that's what you're seeing right now, man. And the Lord's putting the spirit of these Edomites to make all these stupid decisions so they can ultimately destroy each other, man. And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed to the end that every one out of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter, and that's what's going to happen very soon. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shall be cut off forever. In the day that thou stoodest on the other side, in the day that strangers carried away captive his forces, and foreigners entered into his gates, and cast lots upon Jerusalem, even thou, I was one of them. But thou shouldest not have looked on the day of thy brother, in the day he became a stranger. Neither shouldest thou have rejoiced over the children of Judah in the day of their destruction. Neither shouldest thou have spoken proudly in the day of distress. Thou shouldest have not entered into the gate of my people in the day of their calamity. Yeah, thou shouldest not look on their affliction in the day of their calamity, nor have laid hands on their substance in the day of their calamity. Neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut off that did escape. Neither shouldest have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. For the day of the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahshua is near upon all the heathen. As thou hast done, it shall be done unto thee, and thy reward shall return on thine own head. And that's what's about to happen right now. For as ye have drunken upon my holy mountain, so shall the heathen drink continually. Yeah, they shall drink, and they shall swallow down, and they shall be as though they have not been. But upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessors, and the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord hath spoken it. And yeah, that's gonna be after that years of hardcore bondage, for you fucking Edomites. The Lord's gonna fucking get rid of you. And they of the south shall possess the mount of Esau, and they in the plain of Philistines, and they shall possess the fields of Ephraim, and the fields of Samaria, and Benjamin shall possess Gilead, and the captivity of this host of the children of Israel shall possess that of the Canaanites, even unto Zephath, and the captivity of Jerusalem, which is in Shepard, shall possess the cities of the south, and Savior shall come up on Mount Zion to judge the mount of Esau, and the kingdom and the kingdom shall be the Lord's, right? So everything that Esau owns, man, it's gonna transfer back, man. It's gonna be trading places real soon. So brothers, we almost there, right? Right. So hold on, man. And so I'm gonna get a few more. Actually, no, we don't need to watch this. That's kind of redundant. Uh, who still? We could probably save this for another video, right? Yeah, all right, but the main point is gonna be it's gonna be in this video, and then we're gonna close off with one precept.
If you want to support this kind of analysis, there's a Ko-fi link below. Every contribution helps. Here's the part that no one wants to say out loud, that this might not actually be reversible. In economics, there is something called trade flow stickiness. Once a buyer, whether it's a supermarket, an automaker, or a logistics company, switches to a new supplier, they tend to stick with them. Even if the old supplier drops prices or tariffs disappear, people don't always necessarily switch back. That's because trade isn't just about cost. It's about trust. Can you rely on this partner to deliver rain or shine? It's about branding. Sometimes customers start to identify with a new product or even a different national label. It's about logistics too. If your supply chain runs smoother with these new partners, it's hard to justify switching back. And of course, it's about politics. Companies want to avoid future disruptions, so they're less likely to depend on countries seen as a little unpredictable. Look at Tesla's fall in Europe. It isn't just about stickier price, it's about identity. When a German driver switches from a Tesla to a BMW i4 or a Hyundai Ioniq, it's not just a new car, it becomes their car, tied to their country or their values. They rarely actually go back. The same thing happens with food. If Canadian distributors get comfortable sourcing avocados from Mexico or cheese from the Netherlands, the whole process, ordering, shipping, paperwork, becomes second nature. And US suppliers, they're now just another option, not the default anymore. Economists call this a structural decline. It means the change is becoming baked into the system. It's not just a dip that you recover from when a policy changes, it's a long-term shift. So tariffs didn't just make American products more expensive for a while. In many cases, they made them less appealing or even less trusted. And in the process, they handed competitors an opening that might never actually close. If you're enjoying this video,
Yeah, and that's basically the main point right there, right? Right, because of these tariffs, right? Right, these other countries, that took products from America, right? Like Canada and the EU, man. It basically made Babylon less trustworthy because they raised the prices, right? And although it is them trying to save their world reserve currency or whatever, which ultimately they're going to use that to crash the economy so they can issue out that MOTB. They're ultimately to destroy themselves, right? Right, that's basically causing everyone to hate Babylon, right? The beast hating the whore, right? Right, so I'm gonna get out. Yeah, So I'm gonna get the book of Proverbs. Yeah, here it is. I'm gonna get the book of Proverbs, chapter 14, at verse 28. And it says here in the multi and I learned this from the elder Malcolm and it, from his from his recent video today. But it says here the multitude of people is the king's honor, but in the want of his people is the destruction of a prince, right? Right. So if we get this in the New American Standard Bible, we're gonna start at verse 27 of Proverbs chapter 14, starting at verse 27. The fear of the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahshai is a fountain of life, that one may avoid the snares of death. And the multitude of people is a king's glory, but in the death of but in the death of people is a prince's ruin, right? Right, and yeah, man, and America, Babylon the Great, man, they're in ruin, man. They're facing destruction, right? Wise because we're seeing the end, their downfall. Verse 29, he who is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who is quick tempered exalts folly, man. And as you see, man, Trump gets angry easily, on camera as it appears, right? That's why he's making all these stupid rash decisions, right? Right, and we're to get this and on. This is the book of Ecclesiasticus, or the book of Sirach, chapter 10, verse 3. An unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited, right? Right, and it just goes to show how stupid and foolish these Edomites are, and you can see that with Caesar Nero, all right, right, and but that basically goes to show you, man, we're pretty much almost there, right? Aki and Makwath, man, now it's not the time to get weak and lose faith, man. Now's the time to buckle down, right? Get those prayers stayed up, man, because because eventually, man, all hell's about to break loose. You're gonna be face to face with that MOTB, man, and we gotta pray that Yahweh Bashim as our hedge of protection, that we may be part of the hopeful elect, right? All right, so we got one last scripture. This is the book of Sirach, chapter 25, verse 7. It says here, there be 9 things which I have judged in my heart to be happy, and the 10th I will utter with my tongue. A man that hath joy of his children, and he that liveth to see the fall of his enemy. And that's where we are, man. We've seen the downfall. We are finally seeing the downfall of Esau, Edom, in real time, and with that, I have to say, call Halayim La, Abanawa, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rukah Kadash. Double honors and respect to our apostles and elders, a great millstone, who will well and taught us his truth. I also like to say peace and salutations to the Lord's elect, the hopeful elect, and the 1/3. And to all you Akim, you fellow laborers out there doing this work in truth and sincerity. Shalom. Stay faithful, stay prayed up. And with that, I like to say, Shalom, Kwam Yasharwala, and a Bob Babal. We got next, Lord willing. Shalom.